My name is Chris Stiles, and I am a communications officer with ResBios. Thank you again for joining us. Just to let you know that we are recording today's event, and it will be going up on social media shortly after the event. And if you are not talking, like during the presentations, could you please keep your microphones set to mute, please, just so we don't have any cross communications throughout the event. For those of you not familiar with ResBios, we are a EU-funded project that strives to create positive changes in the field of biosciences through the promotion of RRI, which is research, responsible research and innovation. One of the major pillars of RRI is gender equality, and we are hoping to, through these open dialogue events, to really discuss some of these issues and encourage positive changes throughout research institutes across Europe. Today, we are obviously focusing on the impact of COVID-19 on the career development of women in science and within the biosciences. Obviously, we've now all quite well versed at working from home and remote working, but it's hard to see the impacts that, this being out of the lab, being out of the office has had on gender equality and the long-term career development of women in the field. So today we are joined by ResBios partners from the University of Gdansk in Poland, Professor Natasha Kowalska-Brzeska. Sorry, I did do a bit of practice, but I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Who is a PhD in psychology and works as an associate professor in the division of cross-cultural and psychology and sociology of gender, as well as Dr. Magdalena Zakowska, who is a PhD and associate professor of sociology, who also works for the Institute of Philosophy, Sociology and Journalism, and who also works in cooperation with the Gdansk Foundation for Management and Development, the European Solidarity Center, and the Lab of Social Innovation. So without further ado, we're going to have presentations from both speakers. It'll be about an hour, and then there'll be time for an open forum with some questions later on. So thank you all for joining us again, and without further ado, I'll pass you over. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. It would be really nice just to have 1 minute camera on, because our topic is also about where are you actually sitting or lying or walking or driving, because these are environments we work now. So if it's possible, please turn your camera on. We will see we will show you a lot of spaces people work nowadays. Yes, and we see wonderful places of yours. Thank you.
Good to see everybody. Hi.
Yeah. It's very nice. We can observe that actually majority of us probably is at home. Yeah, okay. Thank you for sharing the background, because this is the protagonist of today's talk. So we will just say maybe 1-2 sentences more to present ourselves, why we are here, and then we will start the presentation. So I am Magdalena Rzadkowska, and I am sociologist, and I do qualitative studies, of which remote work was one of the subjects between 2014 and 17, and accidentally last year it turned out to be very hot and important topic. So I will disseminate some results of the studies we were conducting. There were like 3 or 4 of them. And Natasha?
My name is Natasha Kosakowska, and I work for the division of cross-cultural psychology, psychology of gender. I'm a social psychologist, and my most, I think right now, current topic is observing how actually we are dealing with gender equality in the times of COVID. So I'm very happy to share with you our insights and our observations, and also in terms of recommendations, how can we form academia in the future after, well, hopefully COVID is done and we are preparing for hopefully better future. So happy to have you all here. Just a little organizational issue. It's Friday and it's sunny outside. We are based in Gdynia, which is close to Gdansk, and it's very nice and warm. It's Friday afternoon, so feel cozy. We have tea here, so hope everybody has something to drink. Feel relaxed. It's a let's hope it's an optimistic start for the weekend, this meeting of ours. Thank you so much for joining us. And here are a couple of ideas that we can share with you about gender equality, remote work, and COVID.
And just if it's possible, have under your hand the telephone. We will ask you in one moment to do the Mentimeter questionnaire. And then in one moment, we will ask you also to vote, but we will tell you how.
Remember that it's Zoom, but it's also interactive. If you want to ask questions, if you want to clarify anything, it's interactive. You can use chat. You can also speak to us during the meeting. So it's all like we are all co-authoring this meeting together because we all have experience in this sometimes nightmare of today's world.
Okay, just please confirm, maybe Chris, I would like to ask you if you see our presentation.
Yes, I can see it, yes.
Okay, great, thank you, because today was not a good day for my presentations in the morning, so if anything happens, just interrupt us and tell we do not see, or please show something bigger, etc. It's good, it's not like only webinar, it's like interactive meeting, so welcome again. Okay, so we have planned this topic some time ago, gender and career development versus COVID-19, not knowing exactly what phase of pandemic situation we'll have in the end of May. Nothing that much has changed, but we have more and more outcomes of different studies that can help us to design our future in academia. So we would like today to talk a little bit about the situation before pandemic. Then we want to ask you also how you are dealing with it. And then we would like to describe, I think nicely, because we will have some photos, we will have some quotation from survivors of this time, the challenges that appeared during pandemic. We have also nice studies already published. And then for the last part, we would like to concentrate on future of academia as a workplace. So also to design some monitor and other strategies with a small part on recommendation. The research I was conducting with my colleague, Professor Jacek Gondecki in Krakow, and at the beginning also with Marcin Jewdokimow from University of Warsaw, was done, as I told you, at between 2014 and 17. I mean, in pre-pandemic realities, while what was characterizing the remote work was invisibility, then kind of incomplete toolbox. We use the theory of Anne Swidler that culture is toolbox and give us different tools to use it. So this toolbox was incomplete. The dominant strategy was to try and balance to separate home and office. But what we have found out that house was unprepared. And I just added for today's meeting this dimension to academia work. So that time we mainly work stationary. I mean, not all our activities as scholars were stationary because a lot of us work at home. So it was also our advantage towards different profession that we got to know how it is to work at home. But with meeting with studies were stationary. Then we got pandemic reality where remote work become recognized. When the toolbox is like full, replenished, then we have like total integration, everything happening in the home, which becomes also the office for some moments of the day. And we have discovered or named it as the tired house. So also the space is like used, overused, and overtired. And these were times of working remotely. And for post-pandemic realities, we would expect that we can find some appreciation of remote work. We will have like modular toolbox. Who will design it? This is the question. This is also the question to like employers like academia, like universities, that we will have kind of home office hybridization. We will have like blurred house. We will come back to it. And yes, what future of academia is ahead of us. Yes, so this is also a nice topic for the discussion. So this is the structure of the today's talk. And I mentioned Anne Swidler, and Anne Swidler says that in fact most of our active cultural involvement in everyday life is not full joyful participation in common rituals, but rather demanding work of rejecting, criticizing, or filtering the culture, which we come into contact. So we are kind of, each of us has own project and try to deal with what is happening. And we can also think and talk about it, how the institution like university can help us of it. When we talk about this idea of work-life balance and integration, of course, there are some authors that claim that integration of home and work is perfect strategy, that you can build harmony between fields and professional work. But there are a lot of authors who says that it more leads to serious conflicts and it's not easy at all, and that we are balancing on center bondiers. So the theories of living on a bondier on the border is, and having the broad continuum of possible situation, is depicting individuals' life nowadays. So one more theory just for the beginning. Lopez Estrada, this is one of the sociologists that is dealing a lot with materiality and sociology, and says that we can observe two main strategies while we observe working from home. One would be the segregation strategy, so strict internal division between paid work and family life. And the other would be integration, where the boundaries are weaker. These integration strategies are affected by workers' control over the labor process, so potential for flexibility, scheduling, and family, so everything is under our own control. Then support or lack of support and involvement of other household members, and then conflicts that arise when the spheres of work and family overlap. So what we did experience during pandemic was like total overlapping, and we will talk a lot about it. Just to show you some numbers, in 2019, this is the study done by Eurostat, and for sure you will find your countries like Italy, Spain, Greece. These are countries I know you come from. There is Poland highlighted in yellow. Only 4.6% of households, where the households were remote work, we called it that time telework, was happening. So very, very small bubble of households when we had telework, with the average for 27 EU 5.4. Remote work in pandemic, just give me 4 important numbers. So in Poland, the orange bubble, only 11% people in the highest, like the most hot moment, work totally from home. So it's not that much. Of course, we can add children, we can add students that also were at home, but it's not that everybody worked at home. Anyway, it became important phenomena, and for sure remote work was established to be work, which was not visible before pandemic. Then we have the other numbers, 27 and versus 40%. This is from OECD data. This is the potential. So in Polish economy, only 27% workers, employees might be working from home. In other countries with less industry, up to 40%. But of course, there are professions like IT professions that for sure 50% workers might work from home. And it looks like that in a lot of companies related to IT. So first sphere, first perspective, pre-pandemic realities. And I repeat, it was characterized by invisibility, incomplete toolbox, separation of home and office, unprepared home, and stationary teaching. Between 2015 and 17, we conducted the study. It was kind of ethnographic study, so we wanted to be a family pet, to just go to the houses and talk to people, and also present our own perspective on working from home, because we were also from different cities in Poland, cooperating a lot on Zoom that time and working from home. In Poland that time, around 4% of people only experience to work from home, telework was promoted mainly as an effective work-life balance tool, mostly for women, mostly for young mother, and we did criticize it, that it was not a good solution. Then it was described mainly from the managerial perspective. So what manager can lose or win while the employees are working from home. And there was no perspective from household, lack of this internal perspective. So we did the study, we made longitudinal study involving interviews with teleworkers, with their partners, with couples, like afterwards with both of them, and they were doing photo ethnography, like making photos with like camera that can be used only once, so you cannot make any changes in it, you cannot use paint, so there were really real photos, not like journal ones. And then also kind of diaries, they were telling us, writing us what they do. So at that time, these were the images of telework. So teleworker would be a successful man by the ocean, or like clean white mom with small child on her knees, dealing with everything that is happening both at home and at her work. Reality was like this. So these 4 photos are coming with all the more than 1,000 photos we received from our respondents on the left, and probably you remember, and I will just quickly show you short movie. Probably you remember one story that happened in BBC News and went really viral.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. My apologies.
What was this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year.
Yes, so this was the story from 2017, March, actually 3 years before the pandemic. It went viral. It was also discussed because the family was invited to the studio and shared their experiences, what are they doing there. But it was nice to show that nobody had this kind of feelings, only really small sample of people. And let us be back to the presentation. I will do it once more, sorry. Okay. So just to summarize it, in pre-pandemic times, the house was unprepared, the toolbox was incomplete, there was no safety, no balance, no visibility and no boundaries of the work. And this is the photo that I remember I showed on one of the workshops, and there was the officer of security from one of the institutions, and he said, oh my God, you would never let people have this situation at the real office. So there will be a lot of work for us building different codes, how to work from home. Then the other study, this is the study done actually at the beginning of pandemic, we didn't mention to do it, but this was study done among University of Gdansk workers that also asked about their overwork. So look, normally, how many times a month do you work? More than 10 hours a day, on Saturdays, on Sundays, at night for at least 2 hours between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So look at the violet and green, sometimes and very often, just to depict the situation of workers. This is all the stuff from University of Gdansk. But when we look into academic teachers working on Sundays, just to show one of the example, it's really disproportion we can see. And of course, between men and women. There were more women in the study than men. That's why it's hidden in these numbers if you can compare it, but the results are obvious. The same on working more than 10 hours a day. Academic researchers are working more and women are working more than men, at least in our university. So how about you? Now I would like you to go to Menti.com and use the code that is written here. You just write www.menti.com and probably you well know the tool, but just let's be students and get pleasure of doing the questionnaire, and you write 66784663. I will put it also into the chat.
Let us know and protest if somebody has problems with it or is challenged by it. And then you can answer the questions which are on the Mentimeter. So we are waiting for your answers to come. So what's your experience? There are a couple of questions for you. So a couple of seconds more.
We see 2 people finished, so let's wait for some more. 4 people.
So 30 seconds more, and then we can compare.
Okay, so let's see the results.
So let's look at answers that we have here. So when remote work takes the same amount of time as it used to before the time pandemic, well, not really. We all disagree with it, that the change has been very visible. You can still vote when we are, discussing it. So normally, many times a month, I do work on weekends. So this is, again, the reality as we all have. We do work during the weekends. We're going to talk about work-life balance as well. I have possibility to work in a separate space. So this is like, as you can see, 3.7 is the average. So it means that some of us are not working in separate meetings, so in separate rooms. So we have people around us talking in the same time or doing some issues or also working. And that's a reality of many of us. I devote more time to parental duties compared to the pre-COVID time. Well, we disagree because we also feel that we have been very much involved before. And we'll also discuss it in terms of gender differences. I do suffer from Zoom fatigue. So being really taken down by the issue of constant online neuronal uptake of our, thinking and doing, and cognitive skills are simply eaten up by Zoom. So this is, again, the issue for all of us. In the future, I will choose remote work. So here we are kind of, 50-50%, I would say, if we want to do it, because some of the aspects might be kept. We're also going to discuss it. And after a year of pandemic, I do feel frustrated. So it's like, again, 50-50. Some of us do feel, and again, you can see that the majority also managed to say like 6. So it means that we are frustrated, but also please all have in mind that it's the end of the semester. So probably the whole year takes a toll. So thank you so much for taking part in this, and we will also refer to those results, the wider general conclusions that we have from other studies.
Yes, thank you for some comment from Ilaria. We will go back to them. I think you will have more people who thinks like you do in a moment, coming to the results of our research. So we go next to pandemic, because this was also asked in a study. So recognition, yes, we know.
Wiesz co, może w poniedziałek już omówimy. Mam teraz spotkanie, zapomniałam o 15:30, więc...
Please, if you can just take off the mic.
Dobra.
Okay, recognition. So we know we see the work. This is visible, the work from home. We have like so many overload houses, tables, etc. We have total integration of work in home. The house is tired, and we have experienced remote research and teaching. And now let us just remind you 2 slides, probably you know from our previous lectures, the slides that shows how in Europe people believe in people believe their expectations for men and women, because now we go into the topic of gender. So the most important role of a woman is to take care of her home and family. 77% of Polish people total agree, then 29 for Spain, then for example 51 for Italy. The average for EU is 44. And the other slide, the most important role of a man is to earn money. 65 for Poland total agree, and 27 for Spain. And maybe I will find Greece. It's like similar to Poland's 65%. So when we remind the very first moments of the pandemic, we just had kind of euphoric time in a way. We were scared, but we discovered what are possibilities in our houses to just first have the sanitary regime, but then to just try to come back to our professional duties. So these are memes, probably you had hundreds of them, nice and just making us laugh. But the laugh and being happy were not main emotions in this time, and we will now show you some emotions and some difficulties. So this graph in the middle of the slide comes from the study down in Pomeranian region in autumn. It was representative poll of people who works from home, and we ask what we also ask you in a way, with whom you work. So 83% of people work with at least one remote worker from those who work at home. So this is huge. It's like that you have like the office, the company in your house, because there is the other employee or employer. Only 16% work alone, which also might finish with some consequences, being alone and isolated. And then children. In 33% of houses, there were children in primary education, and in 20% with higher or middle education. So the house, what we ask people to design and to show us in emotional maps, got into be like full of different people emotions. These are emotions of teleworkers, but they were like crossing or overlapping in every possible place you were working. So everything was full of emotions. If there were times we couldn't even jog or exercise, or we did it at home. So there was everything in our houses, and it of course influenced us. This is nice quotation. I will read it. Although there are of course assumptions and ambitious plans, I feel a general sense of sloth. More and more often I take a break to browse my phone or read news. The only things besides work, teaching students remotely, this is the work of the person, that motivates me intellectually is sewing protective masks. It gives me the feeling of being needed and the possibility of helping anyone in any way. So kind of frustration, kind of I'm not working feeling, etc. Then the other person, I really like the quotation. That's why I put so long two memories of the person. First is like this. Of course, in the course of my work, I'm also haunted by visions of death. I think it about every day, especially now that epidemic has decided to start harvesting. Unfortunately, I'm quite emotional, fragile, and melancholic, which sometimes makes it difficult to concentrate on my duties. My relationship with my housemates is perfect. The dog sleeps half the day, my fiancé works, she has a lot to do, so we do not really speak to each other. Besides, I always have my headphones on and Spotify with a good dose of metal on. Nothing is a challenge for me, possibly thinking of what series or film to watch next. The only problem that troubles me is isolation from the world. I'm not an extrovert who loves to get out of the house and go crazy at parties, but every now and then you just want to get away somewhere. I'm starting to get annoyed with this bondage. Time has flattened out. Every day is the same. We feel this frustration, I think. Before I started my home office, I thought that by staying at home longer, I would be able to devote more time to my passion of writing. Of course, nothing could be farther from the truth. You have to clean, you have to spend some time with your fiancée, even though she's still around, but it's silly not to talk to her all day. Cook dinner, walk the dog 2 or 3 times. The above description actually applies to every day because there are no difference, as if I were stuck in some kind of limbo with no possibility of escape. So far, there has been no unusual situation, constant boredom. So these are quotations from the field. And then our studies that shows not only emotions and relations, but also the place for work, which is our main topic. So 67% of the people asked in Pomeranian region said they can shut the door while working. Then almost half of them said, yes, I do work in separate room or office, but half of them said I work in different places or in common space, like kitchen, dining room. Then to have a desk, just to have like in Virginia Woolf or Alice Munro, nice stories to have a place or your own you can work, or even a desk, is not that common that the desk is really the desk only devoted to work. Some people also use only bed and sofa, work with laptops on their knees. So the situations change, and it also influenced the way we feel, our physical problem with the back, etc. And the last quotation that shows it, sometimes really like it and say, I choose to sit on the sofa because it is much more comfortable than the chairs at the table. I can be in a half sitting, half lying position, so my back doesn't hurt. And the dog is nearby, so it can lean on me at any time, which is nice and gives a feeling of psychological comfort, a kind of dogotherapy. I also have the option of keeping my laptop on my knees, which is a choice I don't have when I'm sitting in an office. So some people, especially at the beginning of pandemic, really like to have this possibility to be like a little bit in a bed, but other studies shows that it's only the first period of working from home. So now some photos sent to us by people done last year. So with the phones, of course, they are maybe more designed and prepared, but we can differ some things. So these are photos coming from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 apartments that were just like office alike. So these were people who could build, maybe almost half of respondents who could build the office in the house with having like proper desk, books, etc. Also to be easy probably with recording or doing the camera work. Then this is what we can see, the tired and full house with like different orders crossing and overlapping. Maybe sometimes it is that my office now is more cozy, I have more flowers and like a view to the garden, but we see that it was not designed to be a place for work at first. And the stories about animals and people like these 2 photos above, working from one space, one room, meaning that you really have very small place, very small apartment, which was not designed to share time, space, etc. with the room. And I have found nice summary in Marta Klimowicz research. Maybe it can also be analyzed, and probably we will use it to compare with our outcomes. And she said that she finds in her qualitative study 5 phases of remote work. So one was suspension and house, like we were taken by surprise, says her respondent. Then the support or lack of support. So kind of learning together, also causing some solidarity feelings. Then the new normality. I approach all this with the hope that we would enter 21st century a little late, but not too late. I think it was not too late. So new normality coming, yes, okay, this is the future and we are entering this. Then the feel of total overload. So we cannot run on empty fuel anymore. I haven't done anything this semester but sit at the computer. So these are like just from our profession voices coming with people that have enough of the pandemic. And then the time to just maybe of survivors to just sit and say, okay, what did we learn? What are the tools we need? How the system and organization might help us, and we think we can we hope we will pass to this stage and we will really have nice lessons learned from it.
Now, probably most of you can identify with some of the quotations we were mentioning a while ago. So this is our reality, and probably this is what you see. So you are there named as a professor, and then there are lots of students in your class with their black windows, and we don't see a human being. Of course, sometimes helps if you ask people like, so anybody has a new pet or a new dog or anything like a cat, and then all your students bring their animals, and then out of the sudden it's not only human beings on your class, but they're also pets, but also kids. I don't know if it's your experience as well. I've learned a lot about my students' kids and babies, husbands, sometimes grannies as well, interrupting the class. So in a way, we are getting a sense of lack of human being touch. But on the other hand, if you really get it, you get more intimate with it, because you do find out more about people, because you see what's there behind them on the screens. But let's look at it from the perspective of gender. And in a way, for a moment, we were going to discuss it at the end of our session today, this gender binary approach, because we talk about women and men, but let's focus on women for a second, because it's visible that they are the key figures, but not only, men are also the key figures, but in something else. So when you think about women, let me throw at you a couple of important quotes. So number one, Global Gender Gap Report 2021, pretty fresh, is talking about reopening gaps that have already been closed. So we have progressed with gender equality, but these days with the pandemic onset, we do feel that some gaps haven't been actually stalled, but actually they have been opened more and more visibly. Then have a look at World Economic Forum, so similar body that actually is releasing Global Gender Gap Report. We know that right now, it's not going to be 100 years without proper strategies, but more than 130 years, because before we can really talk about equal opportunities and equal chances for men and women. So in a way, we have stalled, and we know all already that without proper implementation of tools and strategies, dealing with a couple of barriers we're going to talk about in a moment, well, we are falling behind. And we all know that we talk about gender equality and we talk about equal chances because talents are being wasted. And now talents are working online. And the talents are working online, and let's look at female and male talent. So we really, with Magda, like this research done by Elsevier. So they have compared submissions of women and men. So February, May, pretty active time for us all. I'm not going to ask you how many papers you have submitted this last 3 months, but we know it from the data that actually when you look at how many papers women have submitted, like look at it, 2,700,000 manuscripts for women, 6 million for men, manuscripts submitted men. So it's like 30% of all manuscripts submitted are female. The rest of them are done by men who are submitting these papers. But let's have a look at one particular issue, because usually when we talk about academia, our productivity is measured by submissions. But how about organizational work? How about reviewing somebody else's work? We don't get prize for reviews, but as you can see, in terms of accepting the invitations for reviews, we don't have that much of a difference, right? Actually, we do perform the same numbers like women and men, but then there is this discrepancy in terms of our productivity of submissions. So what about this review process? What about our organizational tasks? That's an issue we need to look further, and we're going to refer to it soon. And the last quote, if you look at hours working, so there's another study done on the STEM field academics. So we know that children younger and parents of younger children, actually they do work fewer hours during the pandemic, at least that they say so. But the thing is that the decrease in first and second authorships, we do feel it, but we also feel it in a way our productivity and time spent on our most important aspect of scientific career has decreased. But does it mean we're working fewer hours? I don't think so, because in a way what's happening in the academic world is that we're focusing on only one line of our productivity, but there are more aspects that we are really involved in: teaching, organizational aspects. So this is the key person, the key figure, so a parent. We're going to focus on parents for a moment and just, again, have a look at a couple of numbers here. So this is a study done pretty fresh in the UK. So early start of the pandemic, April, May, but already we do see a couple of important tendencies, and please observe it with me. So first of all, when you talk about paid work, we do, prior to the pandemic, women were working 6.3 hours of a weekday on average. Now they're declaring has fallen to 4.9 hours. If you look at fathers' numbers, it has fallen, but the proportion is actually smaller. So they used to work 8.6 hours before the crisis, and now it's 7.2 on average, daily average. Then when you look at the thing that we're struggling with as parents, so juggling roles and duties, mothers are more likely to be spending their work hours simultaneously trying to care for children. So in a way, that we can consider like a kind of bias. So I'm not at work because partially I'm also cooking and taking care of kids. So we might think that actually it's not a pure work and we kind of downgrade the number of hours we actually work, but this is still work. And then when you look at numbers, half of mothers hours spent during paid work were split between those activities like childcare, cooking, cleaning, and then you see the numbers of fathers. So this is like a dark side of the force. It is pretty pessimistic, but let's look on the gender academia and why we're talking about it. So this is the with Women for Science Foundation data, pretty fresh ones concerning the phenomena which we all know. So we are talking about the world of academia. We are talking about productivity of the world of academia, and we are talking about gender equality. So gender scissors is a pretty, I would say, bombastic and tangible vision we all have. So the more advanced the place of a career, then the wider is the gap between women's and men's representation. I really, well, maybe I shouldn't use the word like, but it kind of hits my eyes, this Nobel Prize discrepancy, right? With 3% versus 97% of Nobel Prize awardees. But nevertheless, these are the gender scissors before the pandemic. So what can happen if we don't deal with those discrepancies? We might see that those gender scissors might be even wider. That's a very important aspect. Secondly, some of you might